It's a story they develop, but it's not a fictional made-up story. It's a story of things that actually happened, you know? If you go back, for instance, and you read the Greek writer Plutarch, very famous and very prolific Greek intellectual, but he was also deeply connected with the mysteries. I believe he was the guardian of a mystery sanctuary at Delphi, Plutarch. You find that Plutarch was complaining about people in his time who were talking about the Egyptian mysteries. You know, in fact, Plutarch is the main source of the mystery of the narrative of Isis and Osiris from the Egyptian mysteries. Mm. The reason for that being that the Egyptians were very tight and they never really told their narratives to anyone outside their land, and they never really wrote it down. So we have to rely on the paraphrase of Plutarch to have the myth, Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris. You follow me?
Yes.
But Plutarch made this very revealing comment. He said that even in his time, people who were discussing this myth talked about it like it was a fantasy or a metaphor. Mm. And he said, no. He said, you do not understand what sacred myth is unless you know that it is a true account of things that actually happened. So the Sophianic vision story of the mysteries is a true account of how the earth came to be and how the human species was created. So it says that the human species originated at the core of this galaxy, and it was designed in the core by two aeons or divinities, one female and one male. They're called Thelete and Sophia. Sophia means wisdom, and Thelete means the intended, the intentional. Yeah, the intentional. And wisdom designed you. You are their brainchild. And they designed you to operate on a genius level. They superdosed you with 7 different remarkable capacities. And then they sent that genomic plasm out into the arms of the galactic system so that it could seed itself in planetary systems, and these experiments could develop. And then they watched it. They didn't control the outcome. As I've often said, they want to see how an experiment develops on its own terms. The gods, the aeons, they're not omniscient. They do not have a scripted ending for what's happening right now. Mm. We decide the ending in collaboration with those who set us in this experiment. So it's a beautiful myth, but the point that illustrates the telestic method is this. According to this myth, the planet that you're on right now, the planet that we are all on, whatever its shape may be, okay, was never created. The earth was never created. It's not a creation. If you think of a creation as like, here's the potter, right? Here's the potter's wheel. I take clay and I create a pot. The pot is a created thing, right? The earth is not a created thing. It is an emanation of the power of the wisdom goddess. Now, that is one of the fundamental truths of Gaian Tantra today, which you cannot take on faith, and I don't want anybody to take it on faith, which you have to verify it over and over again. And because this is such an important point, can I give you an example of how you would verify it?
Please, yes, absolutely.
If you used the assistance of a genial species, such as Psilocybe cubensis, which is the Gnostics used and the Eleusinian mysteries used, the Kikian, they use psychoactive plants.
Mm-hmm. Psilocybe cubensis, psilocybin is the active ingredient contained in mushrooms, magic mushrooms, just to clarify that.
Right. There are various psilocybe types, cubensis, mexicana. They're all genial allies. They take you into an altered state in which you can go directly to the source of life. That is, you can meet directly and encounter the superhuman, awesome power of the living earth. She is your mother. She designed you. She can read your mind. Believe me, I'm proving that to people right now, just for the fun of it. She knows everything about you from the cellular level. You don't have a life of your own. Your life is just a thread in her dream. She dreams the earth. And the evidence that you would see if you conducted a shamanic trance correctly would be like this. You would sit on the beach, for instance, and you would be in a telestic trance. You have your eyes open. It's better if you stand, actually. You have your eyes open. You do not hallucinate. You just look at what's around you. You surrender to the power of the earth, which is the very source that gave you your life in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then you see the proof that the world, that the earth is not created. For instance, you would see that every wave that comes up on the beach is imminently guided by her power, as if it were the stroke of a brush of an artist. Nothing is done. It's all being dreamed spontaneously. Mm-hmm. If you saw a group of gulls fly over and turn in the way they turn on their wings, the way they turn on their wings, she is doing it as you see it done. This is what is called, if you want to put a fancy term on it, the vision of pure immanence. The Aeon Sophia, and this is what the Gnostics taught, this is what I teach, is immanent. She's materially immanent in the planet. She did not create the earth. She turned into it. Now, when they realized this, and this is part of the narrative, then they went further and they understood something that is also deeply understood by tantrikas of the Hindu cosmological schools that you will mainly find in the works of Sir John Woodruff, who wrote The Serpent Power and Shakti and Shakta. Mm-hmm. Those tantrikas talk a lot about Shakti. Well, for us, Shakti is earth. It's the Aeon Sophia is Shakti. It's Shakti Sophia. And she is the source of your life, and therefore the path of power is to marry the force of your life back to her. You see, most people just live their lives and they spend it, and they never go back to the source that it came from. They're not concerned. It's if I gave you $10 million and said, okay, go off and spend it and do whatever you like. But you never came back to get to know me, who's the donor of that fortune. So they encountered her directly, and they learned many, many things. And this is how the telestic method came to be. They discovered, along with, and this is compatible with the tantrics of the Hindu mystics, that when she turned into the earth, she put on the clothing, you could say, of the material elements. The air, the wind, the dirt, the animals, the plants, the clouds, the rivers. But she remained exactly what she was in the first place. Well, what was she in the first place? She was a plasmatic torrent from the core of the galaxy that tore out of the core. It ripped out of the core in a surge. This is called the anomaly of the Aeon Sophia. And yet, when she turned in the material elements of the earth and she became a planet, she remained what she actually was, as a galactic entity, as a plasmic entity, if you will. And when the Gnostics discovered that, they realized, well, let me put it this way, this is better. How did the Gnostics know that? Well, they knew that because their practice of shamanic trance was so rigorous and disciplined and steady that they did not go off into hallucinations and speculation and all kinds of demons and angels and all this. None of that. Clear, delete. They had one goal. Telestic shamanism has one goal: to encounter the naked power of the earth in its galactic and plasmic dimension, and to interact with it. So their discipline led them to the realization that the earth is a luminous body that emanates a pearly white, porous luminosity of the most miraculous properties, which is interactive with human witnesses. Now, that's the secret of the mysteries. I just said it in a sentence. As I point out in Not in His Image, those who were initiated into the mystery cells, they call themselves telestai, meaning we who are aimed. Why did they call themselves that? Well, for two reasons. One, because they had the master narrative to aim them. Now, I assure you, if you don't have a narrative that frames what you do, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Sure.
We are a storytelling species. We need the narrative. So I had the master narrative and they had the method. And the method was to go into an ecstatic trance, but to stay sober, to not hallucinate, and to look more deeply and deeply and ever more deeply into the natural world. What you see in the natural world is nothing but an eruption of the supernatural world. It's like as if you're standing in front of a fountain, you know, and there's a circular pool, and then there's the basis of the fountain, and then all the water shoots out of the fountain and comes back down into the pool again. You're standing there and you're watching this beautiful water, these beautiful forms, flowing forms erupting from the fountain. That's the natural world. The supernatural is the fountainhead. It's what is beneath that fountain. It is the spring that feeds that fountain. And when you go there directly, then you encounter power. To me, shamanism is nothing but transactions of power with the earth. And even Carlos Castaneda said that. He did. If you go to gaiaspora.org, to the NAV briefings, there's one called The Boost of the Earth. And I read a passage from Castaneda that says, where Don Genero is saying, oh yeah, well, you know, shenanigans, let's call them shenanigans, okay? The shenanigans and antics of sorcerers, you know, and their intricate rituals. It's all about the power of the earth, and we love her power. So the Gnostics set the example to us. They had that power of direct access to us, and they could see the organic light. And people have seen the organic light, but not everyone.
And this is what you believe to be the Holy Grail as well.
The organic light is the Grail. There's nothing to argue about. There's anything else is a frivolous interpretation. To encounter the organic light is to attain the Holy Grail. It's as simple as that. In fact, the story of Parzival, which is important because it combines the Gnostic, the shaman, and the warrior, because Parzival was a warrior of the table of King Arthur, right?
Exactly.
Also a lover, so combines those elements. The story of Parzival is extremely important because the company of the Grail and the whole story of those mysterious people living on a secluded mountain in the midst of the wasteland, who had the Grail, you know, is the story of the diaspora of the mysteries. So when the mysteries were shut down in the Middle East, and particularly these Levantine mysteries, where the method and the narrative were preserved, were pounded into exile, when all their libraries were destroyed and burned, when the Gnostics themselves, like Hypatia, were murdered, you know, they went into exile. And if you picture Palestine and Jerusalem, that evil place, which is the dwelling place of many archons, as the Gnostic texts warn us, and you picture, if you wanted to get as far away from that as you could, you would go to Wales and the British Isles and Ireland. So that's where they went. And what happened in Wales was that some people surviving from the mystery schools went there in exile. And I call that the diaspora of the mysteries. And they realized a very hard lesson. Because they were the educational elite of the ancient world, the Gnostics, teachers, they were like the deans and professors of a university. If you went to a major university anywhere in the world, say back in the middle of the 20th century, in the 1950s, you would find the university system, you would find all the teachers, all the structure, like at the University of Alexandria. Eleusis was also a university. And you would find very light security because they didn't need it. Now you're going to probably find the presence of security at universities because of the insanity that we've fallen into, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they had no security because they were benevolent educators of the classical world, and they had no reason to think that anyone would kill them.
Yeah.
They did not have a warrior class to protect them. This is not the case today. It has to be different today. The mysteries are now out in public. What I just told you about the organic light is out in public. They could never say that openly. They would never describe the properties of the light in the way that I've done. And I've given dozens and dozens of details of interaction with the organic light. Its texture, how it causes you to have a light, cold perspiration, how it gives you a drop of clear mucus in the right nostril. Very, very specific, and they're the same for everyone. Everyone who encounters the light, the organic light, has the same experience. Well, they protected that mystery. They were attacked and they had to flee. And then the warrior tradition in Europe was founded to protect the diaspora of the mysteries. Great, great and wonderful story. But to bring it down to the takeaway, and I'd like to go into a little more dialogue with you now, because I think I've established pretty much. There's one more point I want to make.
Sure.
The takeaway is that the Earth is a living being. I mean, all animistic cultures know that. But how far do you think you can go with that proposition? How far can you go? Now, there are people who think that psychonautics is about jabbering with DMT trolls and taking synthetic DMT, which is nothing but, I would say, intellectual crack. Okay? They are not aimed. There's only one place to aim, and that's to the source of life. When you aim your force and your mind and your quest to the source of life, you get to where the Gnostics got. Now, encountering the organic light, I can't guarantee it to everyone. There's a passage in Parzival by Wolfram von Eschenbach where he says, the Grail selects its own. And that happens to be the truth. But I can attest that I have witnessed the organic light in the presence of other people. Others have seen it spontaneously. The telestic method consists of going to the organic light in an ecstatic trance deliberately, and here's the key part, with a question. You must go with a question. So typically before Shaktas and Gaian Tantrikas, such as myself, take the mushrooms Before we go into trance, before the rush comes on, you formulate a question. I'll give you an example. Sometimes these questions are highly technical. You have to understand her mind in order to know what kind of question to put to her. No personal questions. Okay? She's extremely playful, artistic, and scientific. She likes technical questions because that reveals the knowledge of the witness. You have to bring knowledge to the knowledge she will give you.
Mm-hmm.
I asked this question once. This was a kicker. Show me. There's also a syntax of how you communicate with the organic light. You're getting that this is a radiance that emanates from the earth. You're getting that, right?
Yep.
Palpable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Material. It's not a flashy light that shines through space. It's soft, like marshmallow. It's deeply radiant. So go to the organic light, and I said, you can use a show me syntax. You can ask a question, and you can say, show me. So I said once, show me the carnal instrument of the third, the mirroring attention. Now that's an example of a really precise telestic question. The way that that question is formulated is extremely deliberate, and it has a syntax which is really very exact. Because what you do when you're in the presence of the organic light, which is the awesome beauty and power of the earth, stripped of its material garment, is that you come with pristine syntax. This is what the Tibetans call it. They call it in Dzogchen, yeshe.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Pristine syntax. You have to have pristine syntax to reach her. You can't just come and blurt out something. Okay. So you form the question, then you take the mushrooms, then you go into ecstatic trance. And when you're right planing, right at the height of the trance, you recall the question and you ask it to the light. That is absolutely all you need to know. That is the sum and essence of the telestic method. It's easy to describe, but I can tell you that it is not easy to practice.
Yeah, I would assume that. Wow, amazing.
I have practiced it with a small number of people. I've had some great successes. And now that the narrative of this Aeon Sophia is in the world, since not in his image, and the telestic method is known, the secret of the mysteries is known, well, there's an option. You know, if you want to do recreational drugs, I really don't care. If you want to be a psychonaut who just, thinks, oh, let's go explore knowledge and explore consciousness, and I don't really care. Do whatever you like. The Gnostics were tolerant. Part of their downfall was their tolerance.
Mm.
But I say, take a look at this option.
Yeah. Amazing. So this is so wonderful, and I want to speak to the participants here. This might be new information to you. This is coming from the Gnostic material from the Nag Hammadi library, which was discovered in southern Egypt in a region called Nag Hammadi in 1947, I believe December. And they've been translated, and they were written in Coptic, which there was a lot of ancient Greek in the Coptic. So some parts were missing, and they were discovered in a cave buried in the sand. And the farmer, I believe, discovered them. He was looking for wood to burn. Yeah. Uh-huh. And they were translated, but as I said earlier, they're not easy to understand. So John wrote a book about that. It's much easier to read his book to really learn about this. It might sound like sci-fi material. It is. This is really real reality is more stranger than sci-fi, but it's very important to become exposed to this material. I have to confess, found it to be strange when I first became acquainted with it. years ago, and through frequent exposures and deepening my knowledge into it, and knowledge also Gnostic knowledge and teaching, it's very, very important for us to understand, especially in the world we live right now, where people are killing each other over whose God is more merciful, and we're being disconnected in a systematic way from Earth. And this change from matriarchal society to patriarchal society is part of this systematic disconnection from the mysteries schools, from Gnosticism, from nature, from our emotions, from our connection to our mother. But there is this very strong comeback and exploration and interest in Earth preservation. Unfortunately, it's coming at the last minute of the hour. But I believe we're living through very, very exciting time and very important time. It's very important to gain knowledge. There's nothing more empowering than knowledge. John, I'd like to ask you about the various names that Aeon Sophia was given. Most people are familiar with the term Pachamama, Gaia, divine feminine. Also, if I may say, Prajna Paramita in Tibetan Buddhism, would that be the same thing?
Yes.
Yes. So, as we see, we have many different names to Aeon Sophia, and these are names that are accepted and people use them, but they don't realize that this is Aeon Sophia that the ancient Greeks and Gnostics told us about, told us her story.
Well, what the Gnostics had, what the telestic had, let's not call them Gnostics because
yes,
that was the insult. Know-it-all, smartasses. They were hated for what they knew. Let's say that what they had was a cohesion and a recognition that is not present in these many names of the goddess. So it's fine to say, you know, I love Gaia and I recognize she's the mother of the human species, and you know, I've proposed the term Gaia Sophia, you know, Panchamama, the serpent power, the great serpent woman who reveals herself through ayahuasca, taken properly in its own environment. By the way, I can't speak for ayahuasca, but I have a very strong hunch that she doesn't like to be taken out of her environment and be brought to foreign countries. Okay? I don't think that's something that she likes. But she is simply an aspect. What the Gnostic shamanism gives you is two things. First, the recognition that Gaia was something, was an entelechy before she became the earth. It tells the story of her origin. So the word Sophia is unique among the names of the goddess for that reason, because it is central to the narrative of her origin. So before she turned into the earth, she was the Aeon Sophia in the galactic core. So it takes our source, which is the planet, back to her own source. No other story does that in that way. And the second thing that it does, again, remember, it's the narrative and the method. That's what you're getting in planetary Tantra, which is the upscaling of the Gnostic message. The method says, hey, you've got your life, you've got your source, your ration of the life force. What are you going to do? Just go spend it on your life. You know, one of the first things that I teach people, if I might put it in that presumptuous term, and this is something that thrills people, I say, you don't have a life of your own. You don't have a life of your own. You can't make that claim. So if you go on and live your life, it is just your own life, and you don't have the transpersonal connection to the source of life, well, that's fine. She'll let you do that. But if you want to go back to the source of life and to join your power with hers, that's the option. By the way, I want to warn people that Nag Hammadi stuff was discovered in the first week of December 1945.
45.
Which was the week I was born. By chance. But it was only, significance was only realized in July of 1947 by Jean Jaurès, who was a French archaeologist visiting Cairo. Okay? It's a horrible mess. And you cannot take the Nag Hammadi library in English, which is the standard, and make any sense of it at all.
Mm.
And quite a bit of what I say won't be found in there. But almost all of what I say is based on what is found in there.
Mm-hmm.
I have been incredibly loyal, and you know,
Yes.
friends and students who follow my work closely will tell you this, you know, probably more convincing coming from them. But I have been ferociously loyal to the sources.
Mm.
And at the same time, I have elaborated and extrapolated them. So what I call planetary tantra is the Shakta way, the way of loving and handling power. When I say I love power, what do I mean? It's like, imagine, you know, there's a piece of music that I really love. It's Scheherazade,
Mm-hmm.
written by Rimsky-Korsakov, you know, who was the teacher of Stravinsky. I love Stravinsky too.
Yes.
Well, take Stravinsky, take the Rite of Spring, you know, take the dancers of the Rite of Spring.
Yeah.
Take the principal dancer who represents the sacrifice.
Mm.
Imagine if you were that woman. Imagine the power that you have as that dancer, the power of Stravinsky's music, of this orchestral ocean around you, and you are dancing a Rite of Spring. That's what I mean about loving power. It's loving to handle it like an artist handles an instrument or a dancer handles a dance. Loving to share it, loving to demonstrate it, and loving to use it in appropriate ways. But it's not an ego trip, and it's not power over others.
Mm-hmm.
It's power with others, but not power over others. So I really want to make that distinction because, you know, power kind of has a negative connotation for some people.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Very important thing. Now, also, I appreciate that you don't call these Gnostic codices gospels, as some other scholars call them. There was a Gospel of Thomas among them. We know this, but gospel, as you believe, is a Christian word. They're not Christian texts, right?
Yeah, they're not Christian texts.
Yes.
There are Christian elements in them. They're a hodgepodge. It's like a Lego pile of Lego things with different. You can put it together in any way you like. You want to make a Christian Gnosticism? Go ahead and make Christian. Platonic Gnosticism? Go ahead. I make Sethian Gnosticism, which I believe is the extract of the pure essence of the non-Christian and pre-Christian message in those teachings. But they're a mess. I mean, I really advise everyone to go and read my commentaries and read all the Gnostic material on medhistory.org, because it really show you what is the message of Gnosticism and its practice today, which you cannot get from going to those source materials.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with this. Confirm also. John's website is enormous, metahistory.org, and he also has a section, a guide, to guide you through it, because there's so much writing. It's unbelievable. I mean, literally, what do you have there? Almost like 10 books of material on the website?
25 books.
Pardon?
25 books.
25 books. Holy Lord. Yes. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that the church fathers hated the Gnostics for was because they were prolific. They said, oh, they're writing so many books and they're explaining the cosmos and they're pretending that they know it all. And of course, we hate them for all that, because especially they're pretending that they know what the real nature and source of evil is, which is another subject. And that's why they, you know, despise the Gnostics, because they were prolific writers and teachers. Can't have any of that.
Teachers bringing knowledge to people because they knew the value of knowledge and how much knowledge being power. And that's probably what made them be going extinct, persecuted, and just...
Well, they were dangerous.
Yes.
You know, it's the greatest heresy in the world. If you want to be part of the greatest heresy in the world, you find that sexy and attractive. Yeah. It's the most dangerous heresy in the world, and it's getting more dangerous as I speak. Because now there's the Calico War Party.
Yes.
The Calico War Party is the warrior class that now belongs innately to the Gnosis of today. They didn't have a warrior class, and that's one of the reasons why they got wiped out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much knowledge. Thank you, John. This is really amazing. I want to open now the section for questions, unless you'd like to add something. Of course, we can talk about this for the next 10 hours, but I want to give